A couple months ago, I did a review on the Adidas F50 LL, and I didn't realize that they were coming out with the Plus version that would look very similar and also be laceless. What's different about the F50 Plus is that it has the Lightstrike Pro technology, which is something new Adidas has added, and the price is $300, which is pretty steep for a football boot, but it's also the same price as the Adidas X Crazy Fast Plus. So same prices, completely different boots on that end, but we're gonna get right into this review and talk about the Adidas F50 Plus. Adidas F50 Plus shares the same one-piece knit upper that the LL version has. It's a very nice knit material, and currently all of the knit one-piece upper boots I've tried have all felt pretty much the same from a knit perspective, so I haven't had an uncomfortable knit. But the rest of the boot is actually coated in this Fiber Touch Plus texturing, and it feels a lot more rubbery on the Plus model than it does on the LL. The main difference though is that I've had this boot for 4 or 5 months, and I got it like 3 months before the LL actually released, or even the F50's released, and they're a sample pair. So I don't know if they changed the texturing up, but it just feels like a raised plastic texture versus an actual almost rubber, if not rubber texture. So I'm not sure what the issue is there. It could just be they're two different boots, or one's a sample, one's not, but that's something interesting. So if I get another pair of F50 laceless here in the future, I'm definitely gonna be checking that out. This Fiber Touch though doesn't really do a whole lot in terms of gripping the ball like, let's say, Grip Knit does. I think Grip Knit still is the best grip on the market, but you're really not getting a whole lot of game-changing abilities when you're wearing this boot in terms of its grip technology. It just feels like a normal boot, basically. The upper on this boot also bunches up pretty decently, and it's not really something that I like, and it can lead to a little bit of uncomfortableness. It is an issue that happens with synthetic boots versus leather because there's just nowhere for the material to go, and it's not as pliable as leather. So that's just something I would keep an eye on, or at least have in the back of your mind when you're buying these boots. For the F50 Plus, I went with my normal Adidas size, which is a 9 US. It's typically what I get with every boot, and I will say that it was a good call. A 9 US fits me about as good as any boot is gonna get. I did have some issues wearing this boot in terms of width, but I've also only worn this boot for about an hour. I just did a training session and wanted to test this Lightstrike Pro out. So will it stretch? Will it get a lot more comfortable as I continue to use this boot? I'm sure, but for the first session, I will say it was fairly uncomfortable width-wise. The inside of the boot has sprint web technology, which is basically what keeps the boot shape, and if you want to call it the frame. No, I really don't think it's anything special other than just the technology they made to name it, but it does, you know, okay, I guess. The boot pretty much retains its shape whenever you mold it, play with it, whatever. It really just springs back up. So it's at least a pretty structurally sound boot. And will this last a long time? I have no clue. I did have a couple issues with the heel cup peeling on one of my F50 pairs, one of my blackout pairs like this, but I haven't had any problems with sole separation, and that's wearing them on turf and grass. So these I've only worn on grass so far. Will they separate? I really hope not, but it's too early to tell. Comfortability wise, this boot is pretty decent. Like I said, it does have some bunching, which can lead to just slight uncomfortableness here and there. It does have nice heel padding and a nice heel design overall, and the heel tab, just like the other F50s, is super malleable, which is something I really enjoy because I like having a lot of structure down low, but up high, it being pretty soft so you don't get any blisters. Now, the insole is the same as it's been for the X's since the Ghosted. It's just really thin. It's the same shape, has the same cutout designs if you kind of bring it closer there. But for not having any real padding, it provides some sort of cushion. Now, it does shape to your foot pretty quickly, but it's also not super thick. So for what it is, it does a decent job. If you have wide feet, like I said earlier, it felt a little bit uncomfortable at first. My other F50s were kind of the same way, and they broke in. So I'm assuming they'll break in as long as you don't have extra wide. So that shouldn't be an issue long term. And now it's time to cover the main feature, Lightstrike Pro. The Lightstrike Pro is actually a foam insert. It's not an air pocket like I thought it was. It looks to be the Ultra Boost foam almost. If you look through the sole plate, you can kind of see just a couple of holes where the foam inserts actually are. And it's comfortable-ish, I guess, but it's kind of the same issue for me as the Vapor 15 with the Air Zoom pocket. It's just, there's no point to have it. I don't really find it that comfortable. I really don't like it in the Vapor 15, the Vapor 16. I could do without it, and I feel like it's the same for the Lightstrike Pro. It's just, they're trying to do something, and I get it, but I just don't enjoy it. You can feel it when you move around and when you cut and when you run, but not as crazy as the Vapor 15s and 16s, but also at that point, why are we doing this? So to me, I'm not a big fan of it yet. I really don't understand why they couldn't just make a cooler, more lightweight boot. If we look at something like the Crazy Fast Plus, that was a pretty sick boot and had a lot of really cool vibes to it and really did feel like an OG F50. And now we have these laceless boots, which don't really feel like an F50. So I wish maybe they would have just done the Plus models as an actual remake or something. But overall, I'm just not super enthusiastic about it. It really feels the exact same as the laceless boot, other than this Light Strike Pro insert. And actually what the Light Strike Pro does is it raises the toe box up and points it a bit more. And it probably won't be able to tell because of this boot, you know, just up on my black jersey versus the white one, but there's definitely a bit of a difference in terms of how the toe is raised. And obviously that's gonna happen because they're pushing the insert in between the sole plate and the studs, so it kind of, you know, pushes it down a bit more, which is gonna cause the toe to curl up, but I don't really think we needed it, to be honest. So far, it doesn't have the greatest impression on me. I've only worn these, like I said, for about an hour, so I've got tons of testing and a more in-depth review in the works with these, so I'll have to kind of see how that goes in the future. So overall, my first impressions of this boot are not great. $300 seems a bit much for what's essentially the F50 laceless, just with a foam insert. You know, it really just feels like they're trying to compete and copy Nike, but they put their own twist on it because it's foam instead of air. But I'm not paying $300 for these. Honestly, I don't like the raised toe as much. I really just think it just doesn't really fit my play style or what I like in boots. And you can pay $240, or $260, which is 40 bucks less for the laceless model. So I would just do that instead of getting these, unless you really like this colorway, because to be honest, this is, you know, a pretty sick colorway. It's definitely the best colorway of any of the F50s, Elite, laceless, or Plus that I've seen. So who knows, maybe they're gonna kind of treat this like the Crazy Fast Plus and only drop 5 colorways of it and kind of just really spread it out. So overall, not worth $300. I'm not overly excited about it, but I'm still looking forward to do a lot more testing on it. So a little too early to give a final opinion on this boot, so keep an eye out for the next actual in-depth review on this boot, which should be in a couple of weeks. I hope you guys liked the review. I really appreciate you guys tuning in. If you like this video, football boot reviews, facts, anything like that, make sure to check out the rest of the channel. And with that, I will see you in the next video.